What's up, everybody? It's your boy T-Time Gaming, man, back with another video. And if you like this type of content, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel, man. We're trying to get to 2K subscribers before July 15th midnight to give away one free copy of the game. And if you already have pre-ordered, we'll just give you $70. But today we have to jump into an amazing video, and it's going to be a longer one. We got the deep dive on Dynasty mode, and it was tremendous, guys. We're gonna go over it now. As you can see here on your screen, this is all the new footage from the new deep dive from EA and EA College Football on Dynasty mode, and we're gonna jump into it right now. So just hold tight. There's gonna be a lot of information coming at you pretty rapidly over the next 30 or so minutes. As I have already stated, man, this is going to be a long video, so just hang in here with me. So as you can actually see on the screen right now, when you go into Dynasty mode, or really when you go into the game period, there's going to be team-specific, pretty much teams. So for example, if they ask who your favorite team is at the beginning of the game, let's just say mine is Clemson. There's going to be a team-specific graphic for that when you enter into the game, which I think that's really cool. That's a really dope touch that it has. I know they used to have them in the old game as well, but I think that's really neat to kind of bring back to EA College Football. So I'm really excited about that. But I want to kind of start off with the light news first, because there's just so much information to get into that the rest of it is just going to be a lot. All right, so the first thing they talk about in this deep dive is the 12-team playoffs, and also as well conference realignment, which you're actually seeing on the screen right now. So it talks about how you can get up to 20 teams in a conference. So if you want to make a super conference, you can, but it can only go up to 20 teams. So that's something that you are going to want to keep in mind here. It does go up to 20 teams, and also as well, the teams can go as low as 4. So you can bring down the conference as low as 4. I don't think you can get like the Pac-2, but you can bring a conference down as low as 4. Now, also with that, and I'll actually post a picture right here, you can see that people, when you change conferences, also as well, your like stuff on your is going to change too. Like your uniforms is going to change. They're going to put the icon of whatever conference you change to. Also as well, the stadium and the field will change to whatever conference you change to. So that is going to play a role in this, and I think this is nice, man. They had this in the old games as well, but it's just a nice touch to detail on how this game is going to be super detailed. Everybody's going to be involved, and when you want to switch conferences, that's going to actually show, as you can see on this James Madison screenshot here. I think they had Clemson and the MAC at one point, and they showed that as well. But yeah, man, I think that's going to be really dope, and it's really nice to see. And again, when you change conferences, it's going to affect, your customization and stuff like that on your jerseys, on your, in the stadium and stuff like that. So I really like that a lot. So now I want to talk a little bit about, their 3 pillars of what they want to really do in building a dynasty. So on the EA blog, and I won't post a screenshot because like I said, it's going to be a lot of this going on. They talk about their 3 pillars of building a dynasty is build your coach, build your program, and deliver the world of college football. So pretty much in the Build Your Coach session, it talks about how pretty much the coaching decisions that is going to be made are going to impact your journey. Even from small to little, it's going to impact. If you're at a small school, you're going to have to make an impact and be good there. And if you're at your dream big school, your decisions are still going to be, impactful. It's still going to make an impact on your team. Also as well, building your program, it talks about how recruiting is the lifeblood of this game, how recruiting is going to be important, how you are going to consistently build a consistent winner by recruiting high school talent. It talked about that as well. And it also says you will need to talk about college football roster retention and utilizing the transfer portal as well, which we know that in real life. It's kind of good to have a little bit of a mixture of both, but they are telling that high school recruiting at an elite level is still important. They also talk about deliver the world of college football, and they're pretty much saying in the last couple of years, a lot has changed. We have a 12-team playoff now, so this is going to be another part of, becoming, elite coaches, getting to the playoffs and stuff like that. So they talked about those things being the 3 pillars of their organization. Now, they also went on to talk about coach progression. So how will your coach progress? How will your coach gain XP, right? That's one of the things that they talked about in this. And it's kind of similar to how it was in 2014. Like if you have more first round, draft picks, you're going to obviously earn a lot of XP from that. In the game when you're actually playing, individual game stat goals, like an amount of rushing touchdowns, an amount of interceptions, whatever the case may be, you'll get XP for that. Recruiting as well is a new one that has been added in, and they had this somewhat in 2014, but not as heavy as it is now. So they had one where they're like pretty much if you sign a 5-star recruit and stuff like that, you're going to gain XP points from that. And again, like we talked about earlier, weekly stats that come on. So for example, it's like beat a ranked 5 team you're playing this week. You'll get an update on that as well, and that will also give you XP as well. Now, the main thing I wanted to talk about here was the coach archetype. So there are going to be several different coach archetypes. They talk about it a lot here. They talk about like a CEO type of archetype, also as well like a scheme guru, a program builder, and these are all broken down into abilities. So these abilities are going to be broken down in different, like kind of like badges, almost like if you're familiar with, NBA 2K, there's almost going to be like a badge system, for example. And you can see here on the screenshot, I have the Oregon coach here. I'll put it up on the screenshot. But, as you can see, there's different levels. There's different little moderators within that. And, it kind of gives you levels. So you might start out as a bronze recruiter, but may work your way up to silver, and then may work up to gold, and then platinum, and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much determined by, if you're a recruiter, we're just going to keep using that for example. If you land 5-star recruits, you're probably going to be able to use that to move up and to get more players and to get more recruits, and it's going to be a little easier for you to recruit. But what they did want to acknowledge is you're not going to be able to do all this at once like you used to could do in the old game, where you could just max out your recruiting and then everything else doesn't really matter. You got the talent. You're going to probably have to spread that across the lines with offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. So you might want to be a recruiter, but you might want your offensive coordinator to be a scheme guru to where he can kind of get guys open. You might want your defensive coordinator to be a motivator so you can kind of spread around. Or if you want to just go all in on recruiting, you can have everybody in on recruiting. So that's also something as well that you have as an option in this game as well. Now, some more news that came out today. Coaching Carousel is back, which I mean, we kind of already knew that. It's the lifeline of the game, but there were some important details on that as well. They did talk about how, with Coaching Carousel, you're going to be able to upgrade your job, leave, go to another job, climb the ladder. They talked about that a lot as well. They say your journey starts when you start your first coaching contract. When creating your dynasty, you will have the option to either start as a head coach, offensive coordinator, or defensive coordinator. Coordinators have a performance expectation, just like the head coach. All roles will have full control in recruiting and playing both sides of the field. So that's good, because in the old game, if you were an offensive coordinator, you couldn't play defense. It was just you can only play offense. But now it sounds like you can play both sides of the ball, even as an offense or defensive coordinator. So that's going to be dope as well. But you will have expectations, and you can get fired from your job even as a coordinator if you do not meet those expectations. You can definitely get fired. So they talked about that as well, and how you have to meet those expectations, like winning games, win a conference game, make it to the college football playoffs, win a national championship. It just kind of depends on what school you go to. So, for example, you see Coastal on the screen right now. If you go to Coastal, if you get to a bowl game, you're probably going to be able to keep your job. But if you go to Alabama and you're like 6-6, I mean, you're probably not going to get to keep your job. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, just like how it would be in real life as well. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about here is Coaching Carousel. So they kind of talked about that year where Lincoln Riley and also as well, my guy from LSU, what's his name? Brian Kelly. He talked about how both of those coaches kind of left for other high-profile schools. They talked about that a little bit as well. They talked about following the 2021-2022 season, high-profile schools like LSU, USC were both, with new coaches. Both schools did not see, that coming and hired elite coaches from other high-profile schools. Suddenly, other high-profile jobs were unexpectedly available. So this is something that's also going to take part of the transfer portal as well in real life. So I also wanted to read this too, and I actually will post this screenshot. It says, how does Coaching Carousel work? And it says pretty much the Coaching Carousel kicks off conference championship weekend. During the week, all coaches coaches' contracts are going to be processed, and schools are going to determine if they want to fire or extend you or whatever the case may be. If your school has decided to fire or extend you, you'll receive an action item notifying you of the news. If you are a head coach, you will be able to fire your coordinators during that week, but you will not be able to fire them pretty much after that, is what they're saying. And then after that, they said once you advance in the week and arrive to the bowl games, the first round of job offers will go out. If you receive any job offer, you will be notified via an action titled View Job Offers. If you did not receive any offers, you will have a generic action item that says Coaching Carousel. Pressing that action item will take you to the Coaching Carousel screen where you will be able to view any job offers you have, as well as if there are any job offers in the country. So pretty much you're going to be able to see everything at once. Now, in the old game, you could not do that. They would go pretty much from best team down to worst, and you would kind of just see where things lie. So I do like that. Now, they do go on to say this as well. They said just because you didn't receive any offers in the first week of the bowl season, doesn't mean you're not going to get one, pretty much essentially. There's going to be a couple of weeks, from what I'm understanding there, it's going to be a course of 4 to 5 weeks where you're going to be able to possibly get a coaching job. So again, this might be something that a lot of people like. You might not want to jump at the first job coming open because there might be a better one down the line that actually wants you as well. So again, this just goes back to the realism of this game, the details in this game. And I'm telling you guys now, I'm not trying to get too hype, but man, this might just be the greatest college football game I've ever seen created. If everything pans out the way people are saying it and the way EA is talking about it and what we've seen today in this, and even with this screenshot right here that I'm showing y'all on the screen with the recruiting, if all this stuff pans out, I'm not going to lie to you guys. This has the potential of being the best college football game we've ever seen. Now, one other thing they did mention as well, they also said if you take a new job, let's just say you're at Texas A&M and you take a new job at Duke, I don't know, whatever the case may be. You were a Texas A&M coordinator, you take a head coaching job at Duke. Pretty much, you're going to be able to play that last Texas A&M game, that bowl game. You're going to be able to play that. So you are going to still be able to play with Texas A&M, even though you've already accepted a job at Duke. So I think that's dope. I like that a lot, and I'm really excited about this. Once again, man, the details in this game are just incredible, bro. And I'm telling you now, it's going to be amazing, and I'm super excited about it, man. Now, they also talked about how schools determine who they want to hire, which is a really good point. So one thing they're going to want to look at is the level. The level of the coach. The higher the coach level is, the more powerful he can be. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how it was in the old game, so I'm not really surprised. Schemes. So that's another thing that is kind of new. It says certain schools look at, the military academies want coaches who run a certain scheme or offense or defense. So for example, if you try to go to USC with a daggone option offense, they're not going to hire you. They're not going to look at you because they don't do option out there on the West Coast. Everything's spread open, air raid, throw the ball. Archetypes is another thing they're going to look at as well, which we talked about earlier. CEO, all that stuff, team program builder. So they're going to look at that. Also as well, pipelines. Now, we're going to deep jump into this a little bit later on in the video about pipeline areas and metro areas. We're going to jump into that because that is going to be in here as well. All coaches have a primary pipeline, which provides a boost in recruiting. This is meant to stimulate the area of country where they have strong ties and relationships in recruiting. Schools prefer coaches whose primary pipeline is strong as the ones the schools are recruiting in. So, for example, if you are a coach that is recruiting heavy in Southern California, right? USC and UCLA are probably going to look at you and say, hey, bud, what's up? You know what I'm saying? But maybe not Nebraska. You know what I mean? Like, they might not be, that might not be their pipeline area. You know what I'm saying? So that's something else that you're going to have to look into as well. But once again, man, the details in this game are just absolutely insane. So in the next section of the game, they do talk about how pretty much starting bowl week 1, you can start hiring your coordinators, and if you have a position open. Now, you can't fire after that, though. So once you hire them, they're locked in. That's who you're riding with for the season. And again, we kind of already talked about how they're going to pick people. But again, they're going to be able to manage your staff. If you're a head coach, you're going to be able to manage your staff. You're going to be able to pick the guys you want. And you're going to even be able to pick them by like what fits your school. If they're not a scheme fit for you, if they're not, in a recruiting pipeline that you like, you're going to be able to determine, hey, I don't want them to come out here. Yes, I do want them to come out here, so on and so forth. So that's going to also play a role in this game as well. Now, I also want to talk about another thing that I liked a lot, and I'll actually, we're going to actually post a screenshot here from On 3 because this was actually something that they put out and I liked a lot as well. They talked about how certain recruits, so now we're getting more into recruiting now. There's going to be 3,500 recruits generated each season. So, for example, on this next thing, it says Southern California is known for great quarterback talent. So guess what? There's probably going to be a SoCal pipeline where you can recruit guys from, and you're probably going to want to get your quarterbacks there because that's what they're historically known for. They said East Texas is going to they're going to produce like big physical wide receivers, which we've seen that in the past with a lot of the guys that's from that area. Again, that's going to be able to kind of take place within the game like it does in real life. It's going to say South Florida is going to produce fast and deep threat wideouts. So again, kind of playing back on that whole thing of realism and being able to see, what's going on. So I think that's going to be fun as well. And it kind of talks about a little bit here in the deep dive blog. It talks about how, there's going to be a range from 5 to 4 to 3-star prospects there is every year what makes California quarterbacks different from a Florida quarterback. So a California quarterback is probably more of a pocket passer, probably more of a gunslinger, to where a Florida quarterback, let's be honest, kind of probably a little bit more of that Lamar Jackson type. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to have that difference in the recruiting as well. So I think that's really, really great. Now, let's start jumping into recruiting a little harder right here. Now, in recruiting, they talked about ultimately we landed on 4 core goals when building your program. So one thing they wanted to do was humanize recruits by giving them unique needs and motivations that the player has to be discovered during recruiting. So pretty much you're going to have to discover what they're, what the player's interested in. What do you want from them? What do they want from you? Are y'all a fit? That's pretty much what that's saying. Also, as well, the different regions of the country by player caliber, quality, and type of, capture the actual high school talent based on historical real world data. So that's just what we talked about. Out there in LA, you're going to get you a good pocket passing quarterback. You might not get the same good pocket passing quarterback in New York City. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're kind of talking about there. Represent the different resources available to schools, ensuring that top schools can blanket the country, while smaller schools will need to be more target with their approach. So again, this goes back to if you're at Kennesaw State, you're not going to be able to recruit 5-star recruits. It's just not going to happen. So I think a lot of people are going to be kind of disappointed in that, but I love that because that is realistic. And also as well, they want to make the transfer portal feel unpredictable, like it is in real life. So I love that as well, and I think that's going to be important as well. Now, they went on to talk about the 3 different stages of the recruiting, cycle. They have discovery, pitch, and close. So I'll kind of put this in simpler terms because, again, we know this video is going to be a longer one. So pretty much for the discovery part, this is when you're finding out stuff about the player. Find out if he's a match for you. Find out if you're interested in him. Find out if he's interested in you. These are all the things that you're going to learn in the discovery period. Then after that, you're going to go ahead and start, transitioning into the pitch, period of the game, where you're starting to pitch them ideas, pitch them things that you like, pitch them how they could fit into your program, just like they do in real life, man. Just like they do in real life, start pitching them and getting to see if they're going to be somebody that's going to be interested in your school. Once you get to that point, you want to get to the close. From my understanding, from what I'm seeing here, the close is pretty much when you get them on campus, you get them on a visit, you get them on your campus to see a game, which we're going to jump into that in a few minutes as well. That's going to also be a part of this whole thing right here is the close. So you're going to want to close out, try to get guys committed, stuff like that. Now, once again, just like the old games, those my school grades always are going to play a factor, but it seems like now they're going to play a factor more than ever. And I'll read off the 14 pitches. We kind of already know them, but playing time, playing style, championship contender, program tradition, campus lifestyle, stadium atmosphere, pro potential, brand exposure, academic prestige, conference prestige, coach stability, athletic facilities, and proximity to home. Those are the 14 things that are going to be the pitches that you're going to have to go over. They also talked about brand exposure is more like pretty much like NIL essentially. So they talked about that as well. And pretty much those things are going to play a big role in recruitment as well. So that's going to play a big role. Now, they also started to talk about recruiting pipelines, which we kind of just touched on this a little bit, but I'll touch on it a little bit more. They want to make it more regional. So, for example, they've broken Florida up into 3 different pipelines. So there's North Florida, which is going to be like Jacksonville, Tallahassee, that area. Then they talked about Central Florida, which will be like Orlando, Lakeland, all that area. And then you have South Florida, which is kind of like, like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, down there. They're going to be different type of players within those 3 sections, which, again, that just shows the detail in this game. They also even brought up how Metro Atlanta by itself, which is a very heavy talent area, is going to have their own pipeline, which I think is tremendous. I would probably say there's going to be the same. I think East Texas is kind of like Houston, all that area. So I think there's going to be metro cities like LA will probably have its own area. Places like that's heavy in the football. Dallas will probably have its own area, probably North Texas or whatever the case may be. But even Atlanta has its own metro area, as where New York and New Jersey, there's not a lot of great players in the state of New York, but they are a good bit in New Jersey. They're going to have their own pipeline together. So New York and New Jersey will be mixed in together as a pipeline, but there will be 50 pipelines in college football. So there might not be states anymore. There might be, like, for example, Massachusetts, all up there, Connecticut. They might be considered the Northeast pipeline or the New England pipeline. So that's how that's going to work out as well. Now, they also brought up how school pipelines will not change, and I like that as well. So they use Florida as an example. They said Florida has historically dominated recruiting in Central Florida in areas like Lakeland, Tampa, and Orlando, similar to LSU regularly reaching into East Texas along the Gulf Coast. This also accurately reflects the challenges of recruiting to a small school because it is not located in those adjacent strong pipelines. So again, I'll just use my team, for example, Clemson. We recruit really well in the metro Atlanta area. That's kind of been our thing for like the last 10 years or so. And so, for example, it's going to be hard for a team like North Carolina to go down there and recruit, in Clemson's area and Georgia area. And it's going to be hard, just like it is in real life, because they're not on the same level as, a Georgia, a Clemson, or so on and so forth. So they also talk about setting up your recruiting board, man, just kind of making sure that you get guys that fit your need. You fit guys that actually fit what you want in your program. You get guys that you actually need, for one, because there's going to be players that are going to be at risk for transferring, which you probably just seen that on the video, and we'll probably jump into that a little bit later on. But that's also going to be another important part of this game, is being able to know, hey, I can't bring in 6 quarterbacks, because one of these guys are probably going to decommit, which we're going to talk about in just a few seconds, because that was another kind of news-breaking thing that we've seen today as well. But what I will say is it is going to be important to be able to have some type of roster management like a real coach. You're not going to be able to sign 6 wide receivers, 7 wide receivers, and think all of them are staying. If that doesn't fit if they don't fit your needs, it's not going to work. So that's also something as well EA has implemented into this game. And again, man, they've done a tremendous job. I think they pretty much beat the Madden reskin allegations at this point. Even with some of the new gameplay we've seen today, it looked really good. So another thing they talked about is scouting. So scouting is going to be something that you can do. Now, there are 4 stages to the scouting. So unscouted obviously means there's a question mark on every single thing on the player. Partially scouted is at the stage where you start kind of looking at them a little bit, but they get them up to 25%. It might show a little bit of their rating, but not all of it. Mostly scouted is going to be when pretty much the scout is mostly scouted, but not fully scouted. And then when they get to fully scouted, which is the last step, when a rating is fully scouted, you know exactly how good this prospect is by each attribute rating revealed. Now, their overall rating will not be revealed, chat. So that is something that you're going to keep in mind. You'll be able to see like their speed, their the basic stuff, but their overall, I don't think reveal of their like actual overall will not be revealed actually till they get on your team and on campus. So they also talk about finding an ideal pitch, man. So again, the pitch stage of, the recruiting is kind of like in that middle stage there where you probably got into their top 5, top 8. You're going to want to have to start doing a pitch to kind of get them to decide what they want to do. So in the stages, they have a stage 1 pitch where pretty much there's 5 actions in pitching that you need to do. You need to offer a scholarship. That's obvious. You're going to be able to search their social media. So you're going to be able to go through, kind of find out some stuff about the recruit and stuff like that to know kind of what to go after. You're going to DM a player to see if there's interest there. And also as well, you're going to contact family and friends. And honestly, that's amazing as well. And then the last step of those pitches is send the house. You go throw everything at him and see what he takes. And that's probably towards the end of it. But you're going to be able to go through and see what you actually want and see what actually matches his needs and find out his motivations. They also talked about how you're going to be able to sway people's motivations as well. So that's another thing that you're going to keep in mind as well. So there are 2 types of pitches. They're going to be a soft sell pitch and also as well a hard sell. So soft sell is just something that's low risk. It's a pitch, but it's low risk. It's not going to hurt you too bad, and the risk is very low. Now, a hard sell is when you're throwing pretty much everything at them. You might even be in a desperate moment is what they said here. And it could go well and it could go terrible. So it could go either way on the hard sell. So that's a really risky one. But that's probably for a guy you feel like you're on your last limb with. And if you don't get him, you kind of was already not expecting to get him anyway. So that's something that they also included in here as well. Now, they also talk about the final thing here, which is close. They want you to be able to close the recruit, get him in on scholarship, get him in on campus visits, and you're actually going to be able to schedule activities for this player. So, for example, if the player's one of his top things is, let's just say, academic prestige, you're going to be able to maybe show him a classroom, show him study hall, and that might sway him to be like, you know what, I like this school, I want to come here, they're taking academics seriously here, and this is where I want to go. So you're actually going to be able to set up visits on game day when these guys come to your campus and actually set that up. I think that's tremendous because that's what happens in real life as well. You're going to be able to nail out 3 activities per week. Now, this is going to be fun because you got to be careful too, because if you pick something that the person doesn't really care about, that could also affect you from getting him as well. He might say, well, they ain't talking about nothing I want to hear about, so I'm out on this guy. Now, obviously, we know Dealbreakers was in the last game as well, and it's in this one as well, but it seems more prevalent in this one. So pretty much it talks about how players can just opt out and just leave if they want to, if they feel like it's just not a match. And this kind of moves more into the transfer portal information right here. Pretty much like if the players, if his deal breaker is not being met, like you can actually see here on the screen, the deal breaker is not being met, he will probably hit the transfer portal or literally lock you out of recruiting as well. So that kind of works for both recruiting and also as well, the transfer portal. So that's going to play a role into that as well. And we are going to transition into the transfer portal news as well, because it was a lot about that also. So let's jump into the transfer portal stuff. So pretty much what they talked about with the transfer portal is that the transfer portal is going to open towards the end of the season. So that's one thing that you are going to want to mention. So unfortunately, there will not be any tampering. There will not be any stuff with the in-season stuff with the transfer portal. It'll all be out of season. So the portal, and I'll post a screenshot here from, once again, this is from On3. The portal will open at the start of all season. Recruiting will last for 4 weeks. So there's going to be a 4-week shift of you being able to see, hey, get them on campus, visit. But these things, it's going to happen pretty quickly like it does in real life. Decisions on pursuing transfers or recruits. So, for example, you're going to be recruiting the transfer portal guys and the high school guys that have not committed already. You're going to be recruiting both of them at the same time. So, again, you might want to take that into consideration. Each transfer will receive a star rating and will have a deal breaker that causes them to transfer in the first place. So, for example, if playing time was a problem at the other school and you're going to have the same issue at their school, they're not coming because that's their deal breaker. You won't even be able to talk to them. Recruiting transfers happens fast and quick. Decisions need to be made. We already kind of knew that, like I just talked about. And don't be surprised by teams having a light signing day and hammering the portal. That also can happen as well. We've seen the Deion Sanders method happen like that. So some teams might go that method as well. Now, let's actually talk about signing day because that's something I want to talk about. So there will be 2 signing day periods. There'll be early signing day and then the national signing day as well. So there'll be an early signing day that's going to happen right before the bowl season starts. So early signing day will take place at the start of bowl season, which we already talked about. And then the national signing day will take place 7 weeks after the national championship. Once signing day comes, any player who has verbally committed to a school prior to signing day will sign, meaning they can no longer commit. You guys, I talked about this in my wish list. You are going to be able to decommit if you do not get their deal breaker. So a player might actually commit to you, but they can actually decommit if you fail on one of your deal breakers. And they actually talked about that too as well, but we'll get to that later on because they do talk about that. But being able to decommit and flip your commitment is a thing. So I wanted to bring that out too as well. Throughout recruiting, you can view teams' top rankings. We already know that. And then it'll show combined with the transfer portal and also as well high school players as well. So it'll be all combined. Any recruit who is unsigned after National Day will stick around and become a walk-on in the offseason. We've seen that before. We haven't seen that before, but they used to have that in the old game where it would be a lot of recruits that didn't even get recruited and they just vanished. But in here it's pretty much saying, with that being said, the days of players who were not being actively recruited and committing anywhere or drifting off are done. So again, this pretty much simulates that low lock cheese is over. That's pretty much what they're telling you here. You're not going to be able to low lock cheese stuff anymore at this point. So yeah, that's going to be another thing that's going to be viable. They also talked about, did they fail into grades? Did they fall because of their grades? Did they have a change of heart? Is why they didn't commit? So they talk about all that stuff in here as well. It's just a lot of information, man, here, and I'm just super excited about it, man. Now, I did want to talk about the different player development traits because they have that as well, similar to Madden. So they have normal dev trait, which is normal, like, what we normally see. Impact, which is this type of player can really change a team. Their progress is faster than normal with higher upside. Now, Star Dev is going to be a potential Sunday player. There are very few of those that go around and they'll establish themselves early as learners. And then elite is the best of the best. These players will make a statement the moment they get on campus and have potential to be an all-time great. So those are the 4 different type of dev traits. So as you know, in Madden, you have, star dev, normal, star, superstar, and then X Factor. Pretty much the same thing here, essentially. But just as far as recruits, it's pretty much the same thing, essentially. So that's just what it is at that point. Now, they go on ahead and talk about impact players and all that as well and how they're going to affect the game. Now, they also went on to talk about the 12-team playoff as well, man, and how that's going to be affected. So I don't think you're going to be able to change the 12-team playoff. It's going to be stuck at 12. They're not going to allow you to change that. So it is going to be 12 going forward on here. Also, as well, it talks about the conference realignment. We kind of talked about that earlier, how you're going to be able to, have up to 20 teams in a conference and as low as 4 as you want to. I don't think you can completely delete a conference, unfortunately, but you can go ahead and pretty much essentially have your own conference. If you want to bring the Pac-12 pack, cool. You can do that. They talk about that. Be your own commissioner. If you prefer to reset the conferences back to previous configurations, push forward in potential, and you can do that. So there's going to be a time here where you're going to be able to put these conferences wherever you want. But like I said, the main thing you're going to want to know is it can only go up to 20 and it can only go down to 4. So that's one thing you are going to want to keep in mind. I know this is going to make a lot of people happy. Team Builder is going to be available on Online Dynasty. So if you want to do your Team Builder on Online Dynasty, guess what? You can do that. That has been confirmed. It says Team Builder is back, and yes, you can import up to 16 Team Builder teams into a private Online Dynasty. So that is going to be a thing there. Now, obviously, that means you're going to have to switch out 16 teams. But if you want to bring in a whole HBCU conference, if you want to do that and take away something, you can absolutely do that from what this is saying here. And I like that, man. I think that's going to be pretty dope, and I think a lot of people are going to be excited about that as well. Now, they went on to talk about being able to burn a red shirt. So this is another thing that we've kind of talked about a little bit, but not a lot. So each precinct, you will have the option to select which player you are sure you want to red shirt. And during the course of the season, you can monitor how many games each player has played in order to keep their determination. So you also know in the last couple of years, the red shirt change has now you can play in 4 games, but after that, you can't really play anymore. So once they get to that 5th game, if you play them in the 5th game, they are no longer a red shirt freshman at that more. They're just a straight up freshman that's going to be going into their sophomore year next year. So again, I think that's going to be important as well to keep an eye on, and I'm excited to see that. Now, they also showed how you can earn stickers. So we know schools like Florida State, also as well Ohio State, they put stuff on their helmets. And I'll put the screenshot here so you guys can see it. So they showed DJU and then Will Howard. They didn't have nothing on their helmet like that in the beginning of the season. And then they showed them towards the end of the season, and they had a whole bunch of stickers on their helmets. So they are bringing that back. I think that's pretty dope as well. I'm excited about how there's just so many details in this game that I'm really liking a lot, man, and I'm really excited about as well. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. I think this is going to be probably the game of the year the way it's looking, but they pretty much show that as well. They show that you can earn your stripes and earn your stuff like that, so I think that's pretty good, and I'm just excited, man. Let's talk a little bit about the recommit and decommit thing as well. So if you can go back and kind of look at what they were talking about, now they were pretty much saying if you fail on holding up your end of the bargain when it comes to the deal breaker. So for example, if a player's deal breaker is, hey, I want to be at a team that competes at a national championship level. And let's just say you're Alabama, year one under, the new coach they have there. And let's just say that he goes 7-5 and they don't make the playoffs. And the guys think it's championship contender and he's committed to Alabama. They are saying that when the national deadline, when the national days of signing comes, that player may decommit and flip his commitment. So again, this was something that we brought up back in, early iterations of the wish list. We talked about how it was going to be a big deal if players could, decommit, recommit, whatever, flip their commitment. And that is going to be a thing because they made that prevalent and let that be known. Until that paper is signed, they can verbally commit all they want to, but when signing day comes, they can flip their commitment. So that is going to be in the game. I know a lot of people was hoping for that. I was one of the people included, and they have confirmed that you are going to be able to flip your commitment. So again, you're not really in the clear until that paper is signed. So I think that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to like, and some people may hate it too as well. But I will say that is realistic. That's really how college football is. A player is never signed really until they're signed. I mean, they can say they're committed and all that, but we know people flip commitments all the time. It happens all the time, and we've seen it happen a lot. So it's very possible of happening, and they're pretty much saying that is going to be something that's going to be a part of the game. All right, so I think we mostly hit on everything big in this video. We might do another video in a day or so once I digest everything that we've seen. It's just a lot, man. Obviously, as you can see here, there's going to be a lot of hours and points, and those hours and points are going to change due to the school. So, for example, if you're like a East Carolina, you're not going to have the same amount of resources and time and points as a Alabama. It's just not going to happen. So, again, I think it's going to be harder for littler or smaller schools to recruit on a big level. They're going to make it really challenging if you're one of those small schools trying to rebuild. But I like that, though. That's realistic. It should be challenging. It should be hard. The recruiting is in-depth. And also, as well, for the people that were complaining, you can actually go on to where it says actions. If the recruiting is too much for you, you can literally go on there to actions and have it automated each week. So you don't even have to really do anything. So that also as well is going to play a factor. Again, another thing I did want to bring up as well is, as you can just see on the screenshot here, you're actually going to be able to see throughout the season who is going to be more so a part of being a risk for transferring. That's something else I want to bring up too as well. They did talk about that a little bit roughly about if you're pretty much not lining up with all their things, they will end up saying, hey, I'm good. I'm going to hit the portal. And if that bar is closer to the top, that means they're probably going to transfer. So you also will have an opportunity to talk them into coming back if you want to, but there will be a players at risk thing, which you are seeing there. And those guys will hit the portal. It does not matter the overall. If a coach takes a job at a new place, there's a possibility that a lot of guys will hit the transfer portal as well. So there's going to be a lot of details in this game, man. So again, man, that's going to conclude it for me, man. We might drop another video in another day or two, man, because it's just so much information here. We probably missed a few things because it's just so much. So again, I know this video was longer. I appreciate y'all sticking in there with me. Again, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll holler at you guys in the next one.